Now, let's see if this is going to work. Let's see if this is going to work. Hello, everyone. There's always a possibility it wouldn't work. Now, I'm going to start us off with a small proviso. So, I am not ill with pneumonia anymore, technically, but I'm still getting over it. As those who've ever had pneumonia will tell you, it's a process. I'm currently at the stage where I still have the strength I normally have. I can lift things as well as I normally can do, but I will reach a certain point and I will absolutely collapse. I will absolutely just go white as a sheet and run out of energy. And I'm also still getting coughs. This is why I'm going to be probably doing recorded videos now we moved. This is the new office. It's not in the configuration it's going to be in. There's still a pile of cardboard boxes full of stuff behind me. Some of it china, some of it books, because it was decided that I would be careful with my books so I could look after the china. Not enough bookshelves. I was planning on building my own bookshelves. Now, considering the things that I am going through at the moment and the reality of it, I was planning on putting a door on there myself, and the odds are I'm going to have to hire someone in to do those things, so it's all going to be more money. It's the joy of being ill. It's a really interesting scenario of being ill, because you make the scenarios based on you being well and your normal level of fitness. And now, instead of me driving up quite happily, doing 6 hours driving up from Epsom to Cornwall, normally it's a fine easy thing to do. I'm doing that in about over 2 days, so I have to have a hotel halfway there and back. That adds on 2 hotel nights and etc. All sorts of things. And yeah, I would like to hang a door myself. I would like to have done it myself, but I know what happens if I run out of energy when I'm holding the door up while screwing it in. Squashed Alex is what I think happens. So yeah, those are all things which are going to happen, and it's all been fun, but broadly speaking, I'm better, and I'm going to try and get back to doing lives as soon as I can. But I was giving you all that as a sort of explanation of, well, you all know how stubborn I am, being half Scottish, half Cornish in terms of my ethnicity when it comes to spending money, and I'm actually having to spend money. And it's like, the lovely Drac is promising to give me some calyxes and calyx bookshelves, but I'm not sure that's going to be enough for all I need out here, so I'm probably going to have to buy some of those again, because I can't build the bookshelves myself like I was planning on doing it. I will build them eventually, but instead of them being built in the first 2 to 3 months of me being here, I expect them being built more like in the 12 to 18, maybe even 2 years time period. It's fun. So, with that all out the way, and apologies for it being a long rambling announcement, but you know, life happens. I wanted to explain it all because I feel like I've been letting you all down, honestly, and I'm trying to get back out. And all those videos will be done. There will be premieres for all of them. All the Tuesday videos and all the Thursday videos that should have been the Patreon videos, etc., will be done. If they're not done over next month or so, they will be done as part of Christmas videos. And again, I apologise. Hello, everyone. So let's see what have we got going on. We've got live chat. We've got the bot working. The bot is working. Question, Doctor. I now have 230 questions. Want me to keep the number of questions asked at a low number of bit? Yeah. Don't take this the wrong way, but I'm I'm supposed to be doing this between 8 and 10, and I start a little bit early, and we're going to hope the family haven't noticed. So I can do a little bit longer with you, but it's going to be a maximum 2 hours, because honestly, I need to do a lot of work, because I need to do a lot of work tomorrow. I can't afford to make myself collapse. I've done that already twice this week since we moved in here. We've been here. I've done that twice to myself. I've been an idiot twice. One day I was just trying to move stuff around the garden and trying to be helpful, because otherwise we have to pay gardeners to do it, and I don't want to spend the money pointlessly. You know, this is the trouble. This is my self-image, and what I've always been is I've always been the one that's done the moving, the heavy lifting, the fixing, the maintaining, those sort of jobs. And yeah, I managed to make myself collapse over that one. Pretty much, I was literally white as a ghost, sitting down on the floor on the grass in the garden for a good hour and a half before I can move, because I managed to, doing 2 hours moving stuff, managed to do that to me itself. I was that much of an idiot. And the other day I did it was, I was literally just boxing, moving boxes of books around. Camera, if you'll help me. I was literally, that's gone the wrong way. This pile of books, sorting out that. That was it, basically. That was it, and that made me collapse, so, yeah. Hello everyone, yes, yes, it is a nice new office. It's about 3 or 4 times size. Should be 159, since there are 2 lives on numbered 156, and a live 158 is numbered 157. This should be, this I think is 158. If there's 2 156s, then I'll sort it out at some point. But John Shea, honestly, my brain is dying at this point. I'll apologise. I do not have enough bookshelves, no. Definitely don't. Dutch Grand Prix Formula 1 is not over yet. Oh, okay. No, you've been falling, yeah. Thank you, Leslie. Hi, Stafford. Oh, Stafford, by the way. Your box and your ship are both here somewhere. They're both here somewhere. Your ship is over there. I'm not panning the camera out, but it's in a nice protected group of key items being protected. And the box, I think, actually got nicked by my mother as a secure thing to put her finest china in, well wrapped up. So it's been purloined and used, but it's here. Thank you for it. It's been very helpful. Glad I'm looking better. Glad your training course is going well. Boxes of books. Okay, so here is a story about the boxes of books. So the Pickfords, and we were literally moved by Pickfords. We were me. And this has caused me and Drac several hours of humour over this one. The Pickfords guys were picking up the boxes, and they were complaining about how heavy they were. And this was my mum's books before they even got up to mine. And my mum said, "Don't start complaining now, because you'll have nowhere to go." And the girl who was with them wasn't complaining. Finally, she got to my books. At that point, she went, "Oh my, we need the trolley." They were using their trolleys, which were far more heavy duty than my trolley there. Far more heavy duty than that. To move my books. And they could get no more than 2 of those boxes per trolley on there. And they decided they were very, very heavy. And at that point, it was quite funny, because at that point the girl in the group started complaining and was going, "Yeah, these are heavy." And she went, "Well, I guess this proves I'm stronger than all of you, because this is the point at which I'm complaining." And I just wanted to go, "Yay!" It was so funny. But there again, all I was able to do pretty much most of that time was just go, "Can we pick those, and I'll move an individual box for you." It was fun. It was fun. So, Chandlord, hello. In 1937, due to magical shenanigans, the 4 splendid cats materialise, brand new in Recife. Hello. Hello, Doodah. You enjoying the move? You do realise there's a double bed upstairs. In nicest way, the moment that dog comes in here, yeah, he's gone straight up to the bed. That's on you, sis. Double bed to go lie down on. Dog is going to go straight there. He is, isn't he? You'll back me up, chap. Dog, option of double bed will go to the double bed. Try 25 and we'll see where we go from there. Go from there, knight. Okay. So let's see. Splendid cats materialise in Recife. Post-War One upgraded conversion. Queen Mary is assumed to upgrade in this line. Where does the Royal Navy station them, and how does it affect the upgrading order? Honestly, what would they get used for? I can imagine they could be sent to places like the Indian Ocean and the South Atlantic. They're going to be great reinforcements for the squadrons down there dealing with the Panther Chief. Let's be honest, imagine the Battle of the River Plate with, I don't know, a Queen Mary or Lion there. Honestly, Queen Mary and Lion are fairly good able to be converted up. 4 Splendid Cats. You can do some interesting things with them. You can fit them in places where, frankly, Indian Ocean, I could see them being very useful. South Atlantic, I could see them being useful. I could see them also being useful for things like maybe Force H as force multipliers. Because, and this is going to sound terrible, you could upgrade them to have faster, to their engine, to get, well, you put in new boilers. If you put in new boilers, you're going to get a lot more power out of them. And you could use that to be able to basically give yourself a heavy escort. Okay, yes, it's not much heavier than most cruisers, but against Italian heavy cruisers it's going to be an advantage, and it's going to mean that you're going to not have just Renown as the escort for Force H quite often against Italian capital ships. I.e., if you've got to sacrifice something, which do you prefer to sacrifice? But it's just going to be a force multiplier, so instead of you being so dependent on... It's going to allow other ships to be in other places. So, for example, if you've got one of them down in the South Atlantic, then the counties, especially the upgraded modernised counties like HMS London, do you need that down in the South Atlantic? Do you need that? Do you need London and Cumberland down in the South Atlantic, down doing stuff in the South Atlantic? You probably don't need them down there. So you can use them for other things. You can use those for maybe backing up your operations in the North Atlantic, for blocking up the operations there or in the Mediterranean. So that's where they're mainly going to be useful. What a lot of these units, when they come in, are going to be useful for is they're going to be able to be used as primary units in secondary theatres. And this is usually where you get into trouble with quite a lot of sometimes some of the alternate history that comes out there. Because a lot of alternate history sees these things and goes, they will be in this fighting action, they'll be at Taranto, they'll be at this, and they wouldn't be. They wouldn't be. No matter how much upgrading you can do you want to put them in the Mediterranean? Do you want to put them anywhere near that scenario? But there are units which are being used in the South Atlantic and the Indian Ocean which you might want to use elsewhere. And these are useful as those units. You could also maybe upgrade their AA advantage and AA strength. But yeah, they'll be used as force multipliers in secondary theatres. And it probably means things like Hood might get into maintenance earlier, because, again, if you have more county-class cruisers free to do wandering around, then that means you've got less pressure on the battle cruisers, on the frontline battle cruisers. Blamosimus, Akagi's best girl. 10-inch gun versus 8-inch gun. 8-inch gun gives you more rapid fire. It gives you pretty much similar range. And 10-inch gun, the big problem with the 10-inch gun is once you get onto a shell that size, you've got pretty much the same rate of fire as a 12-inch gun. With not the range and without the penetration, and you've got pretty much most of the weight of moving the barrel and the shells of a 12-inch gun. So this is the point when we sort of start saying things like 9.2-inch gun, 9.4-inch gun, depending on your perspective. That's where the cruiser guns sort of go 6 to 9.2-inch. And that's the sort of spectrum you're looking at. And then your capital ships sort of start at 12-inch. And the reason is... Oh, thank you, Timu Locker. Thank you, Timu. The reason is because at a certain point, instead of you getting a sweet spot, let's say 16.5-inch guns are a bit of a sweet spot. That's a 16 to 17-inch, 16.5 inches roughly, is a sweet spot for capital ship guns in terms of rate of fire, penetration capability. But you've also get the opposite of a sweet spot, which is where something is too heavy to be and too slow firing to be useful for a cruiser, not heavy or powerful enough to be useful for a capital ship. And that's a 10-inch in this period, in the 1920s and 30s. If the RN is able to develop a drop-in conversion of the twin 8-inch turret to a twin or triple autoloading 6-inch primary, is this something that they pursue across the cruiser fleet? If they could get a triple autoloading 6-inch prior to World War II, yeah, they probably pursue that, because the British were getting obsessed with the 6-inch gun, and it's all down to rate of fire. Because especially prior to radar being really in use and really viable, and their view was that volume of fire, as long as it was as accurate as, let's say you've got a 10% chance of hitting. Well, if you're firing 3 times as many shells, you are 3 times more likely, you are going to hit far more times. And especially as the first burst of fire is going to give you a first ranging response. So, it's... And the British idea was that basically 6-inch shells against most targets, including the capital ships, could do mission kills. The idea being that those mission kills will be killing their sensors, killing their systems. Kind of like what happens at the Battle of North Cape, let's be honest. The Battle of North Cape, the British pretty much go almost through a textbook where the 6-inch cruiser fire blinds and mauls just basically that poor ship, the Scharnhorst, it just blinds and mauls it. And then HMS Duke of York comes in and goes, hello, I've got a lot of firepower, I'm going to blast you to smithereens. And yeah, on paper though, let's be honest, Scharnhorst never stood much of a chance in that fight. It's one of the interesting things, because there's a very long comment on one of my videos recently, which at some point I'm going to respond to, possibly, probably in one of the comment response videos, and what I trying to remember what I call them now, I've forgotten. My brain's gone completely dead. This is the other joy I've found with the joy that is Pneumonia. My brain can go completely dead on things. Let's see, what are they called? Scuttlebutts. Scuttlebutts, on the scuttlebutts. And, yeah, they've done a whole thing, and one of their points, which is a killer point they decided against the British in building lots of battleships, is how many yards have heavy cranes to move armour. And the point is, the Royal Navy had specifically designed the King George V's and the Lions, etc., that their armour can A, be added on after they've been launched, and B, it's added on quite easily on the outside. It's really kind of an easy swap in and swap out replacement. So now, again, the British have done this for views of the yards around the whole of the empire and that they would have to operate from, and easier repairing from them. And it also makes it slightly easier to produce. But I have to say, the big bottleneck, and I have talked about this before on British construction, was armour. And that was coming better as time went on. So honestly, that stops being such a bottleneck. And also there's some really interesting things, like when you're looking at the ordering of the King George V's, there's a whole debate as to, they're ordered in these separate financial years. Then you look at them and you go, hang on, you ordered them at the end of one financial year and the beginning of the next financial year. So basically, you've pretty much ordered 4 at the same time. But you've spread that ordering over 2 financial years, but actually it's a difference of about 3 or 4 or 3 months in terms of ordering time. So are those really separate orders, or are they just separate enough that you can put them in different financial years to make the Treasury happy with accounting? It's fun times. Jeffy, question: where did Dr. Clarke move to in mine? It's been a while for me. Homesick with COVID, so I'm back in the Bruships games. Trick tried 104 Iron Brew, found it. So 1904 Iron Brew put me to sleep. I'm trying it too sweet, put me to sleep. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It's still lovely. I moved to Cornwall. Basically, I don't need to be near London, living near London anymore. The family don't, and we have a lot of family down here, so it makes sense from that perspective. But also, it made sense from finding a property like this. So this property, this space I'm in, I have a bedroom upstairs and another room which I'm going to use as a lounge / spare bedroom. I have a space back there which is going to be converted into a kitchen, and I pretty much will have my own house. So I have my own property which will be an office downstairs and a lounge and bedroom and shower room upstairs. And that's, nicest way, my own place for me to be. And it's, I've got well, then I have a door literally there, which I'll be able to go through, and there's a shared utility space, which is, got all the washing machines and those things, and then there's another door, and I'm into my mum and sister's kitchen, and then so if they have any problems, I am really close by, but we are separate enough that we are able to live our own lives without interfering with each other. So it's really quite useful. And we can find this side of property in Cornwall a lot easier and a lot cheaper, with a lot larger garden space than we can back in Surrey. I love Surrey, but if you wanted to buy this property in Surrey, you would probably have been adding a zero to the asking price, and that's not in my financial range. Whereas this property was in our financial range, and hopefully we make enough of a differential from selling our property back in Epsom that my mum has a healthy profit to give her a better quality of life going forwards for the rest of her life. Give her a nice chunk behind her, so if she wants to go off on a holiday or wants to do something, she can do it. If she wants to follow Cliff Richard and on tour for a couple of trips, she can go do that. Again, Cliff Richard, like certain VTubers and certain other things in this world, are not things you want to insult around my mother. She will follow you. When will the probably this week, probably tomorrow. Now I've got the computer and office set up, because literally I got the office finally set up today, because one of the things that I needed was a 25-meter long cable. Yeah, we are going to have in BT to do some rerouting in this house, because we're going to have more network ports added in. That's the thing. I'm going to get a network port, in a full internet phone port in here, and a full one upstairs, and yeah, a full one in here and a full one sort of in the other property. Currently, for some reason, and I do not understand this at all, but the cable currently, the network port, the internet, everything comes into a spot off the chimney breast and the lounge. I have no idea why that is. At the back of the house, not at the front of the house. It's at the back of the house. No idea why. I will deal with that. So it's going to be fun. So that's why I'm doing this today, and why I've been able to do this today. Anyway, Jeff, hope you find Iron Brew gets better for you. Lord, on the Jutland, Admiral Scheer becomes seriously ill, and Admiral von Clarke replaces him in command. What do you do differently than historic Cyclone? Not taking the Sovereign-type battleships? What doesn't count? EU Jutland, and so Admiral Scheer. I'm replacing Scheer. I'm getting. I am definitely not taking the Sovereign-style battleships with me, but also, if I was actually going to do something with those, I'd have them maybe push up and do some stuff on do some work off the coast of the Danish coast, so that they look like they are, so they attract the attention of the agents. Maybe have them push up into the entrance to the Baltic and do something over there independently. Something where they can go be annoying to people, but not cause me any trouble. And what would I do? I'd use that to raise my rate of progress. I'd probably also at least sort of behind some of my slower dreadnoughts down. But if I can do that, if I can keep everything as fast as I can, I want to be a maneuver force. And I want to keep as close contact with the battlecruiser as possible. But I also want to keep contact in a certain sense. I would like to try and cut off the battlecruisers. So instead of it being a case of them Hipper leading the battlecruisers back to me, I would have Hipper leading the battlecruisers to a point south of me, so I could swing in behind them, cut them off, because then I could probably kill them. Unfortunately, then I probably swing into 5th Battle Squadron, but if I can time it right, maybe I don't. But if I do try swing into 5th Battle Squadron, I'm going to get a bloody nose. I'm probably going to push them off and end up being able to do stuff to the battlecruisers, but I am going to lose something to those 15-inch shells. They did enough damage historically that if they'd had more chance earlier on in the fight, they would have done more damage. How early could we have seen well-designed interlanding troop ships? The British have designs in the 1920s, as do the Japanese. And it's the British and the Americans have a joint design which becomes the landing the landing ship dock, the first generation of it. And I have the book around here which has that in. And basically that design has its origins in a British design study in the 1920s, and I think an American design study from the 1930s. So honestly, probably it could have been earlier, because people have the idea, and usually the idea comes a lot earlier in the design study. Because think about this from the perspective of most companies, most organizations, more scope. They will have an idea, then it will take a while for the idea to percolate around the organization. Then they'll do a study into it. First study won't get anywhere. Then it'll percolate around a bit more. Then they'll do another study. That will get a bit further, but won't get anywhere. Then there'll be another percolate around a bit more. Then there'll be a third study, and that will tend to actually produce something which might be actioned on. So if you start thinking that the British have really the second study in the late 1920s, the first study was, and this is the interesting thing, there's a debate as to when it starts exactly in the early to mid 1920s. So the idea is probably sitting there around in the 1910s, and it takes a while to percolate through. And I would never presume the British have a unique idea or history over anyone else. So I would say the British are having that idea and discussion idea in 1910s, and there are some traces which can back that up. Nothing you can really point to and go there. But lots of things you can go, well, they are getting towards that perspective. That idea that seems to be something that they're circulating on. That discussion is taking place in lots of countries. So I would say the earliest probably is the 1920s, when you have some technology that actually could make it moderately viable. But yeah, you definitely could have had them in the 1930s. And the British would have probably built them if World War II hadn't taken place until 1942, because the British were working on a serious design, and it was all part of the British Far Eastern strategy. Knights of Gretron, you don't need to tell me that Rin Penrose is leaving Idle Corps, as my mum has told me. She's also told me that the others are. That basically Idle Corps has apparently been taken over by Brave Group, USA, which apparently is different than other sections of Brave Group. I have no idea until I was told this. And yes, Rin Penrose is, and a few others are taking their IP, which I'm gonna guess is all their sort of stuff of who they are, and are going independent. And yeah, I have heard this. Cornwall is a great place to live. It really is. Really is fun. Captain Clarke is doing well last time I checked with him, which was before I moved house. So, A little bit while ago, but I was doing well. I've sent him a change of address. I think I might be ending up getting a visit at some point. When will the vote for Sender's Patron go live? I think I said that. That will go live probably some point, maybe even tomorrow. Jeff Beeler. Why didn't the Royal Navy rebuild the Glorious, Courageous, and especially Furious like the Japanese did with Kaga and Kagi? It was honestly the British weren't that interested in keeping the ships going, whereas the Japanese were keeping the ships going. The British were planning on replacing them. So at the very same point as the Japanese are planning on keeping the ships going, the British are really planning on getting rid of them and replacing them when they can. And there's also the fact is that due to completion dates and various other things, the British could replace them when they wanted to because they were considered experimentals, whereas the Japanese couldn't. So the British basic policy towards Argus, Glorious, Furious, Courageous, Hermes, and Eagle was use them till they've run out and then lose them. That's basically it. Also, when is the next video to say you want to build X series coming? Well, it was originally going to be out in August, September time while I was moving, but I didn't record it because of illness. So it's going to be coming soonish. But it's not. It's going to be a little bit while longer. Question: when are you and Drac going to build the rebuild of Victorious about? Going to pull the rebuild of Victorious about? That's going to come up soon. I think that's going to come up. That's scheduled in as a Tuesday video. Steve, Alex, on holiday, Kath asked me a question whilst we were in Portsmouth, which I could not consider. We were at Goa Quay on the harbour tour, and she asked about the buildings that were there before the housing owners. Just how much storage space was there for guns in the air? Basically, that entire area was warehouses. There are pictures of Portsmouth, and Portsmouth was covered, and Plymouth, and there are store spots all over the place. And Gunwharf Quays is a good example of it. There were stores and stores and stores. So yeah, it was covered. Remember to scroll up. There's a couple of missed ones. Oh, a couple of missed ones. Thank you. What if the how did I miss those ones? I don't know. What if the Royal Navy had a class of, say, 4 Ashland class LSD equivalents by 1939? The Royal Navy would have been very, very happy, and those would have been used probably for commando operations and things like the Norway operations. Operation Claymore would have been done by LSD. Norway operations would have been done by LSD. And probably quite a few things in the Indian Ocean, etc. Yeah, Computer447, how are you doing? And good to see you better health. Yeah, thank you. It is much better. And also, I'm not too far from Red Roof train station, new IQB. Just going to point that out. Just not too far from Red Roof, which is on the GWR. Black Maxwell's, what if Japan had launched commando raids on the west coast using their long-range subs during World War II? The Americans would have gone ape crazy. I mean, okay, there is language I can use when I'm using them. I can't use that here. There could be little cousins watching. Hello, little cousins. Ape shit crazy. They would have gone ape shit crazy. Pearl Harbor was bad enough. Japanese launching commando raids on the west coast of America, I'm fairly certain the American response would have probably... Hiroshima and Nagasaki would not have been the end of it. Shanlord, why weren't 17-inch guns implemented development? Honestly, they're not enough advantage over 16-inch guns. And the trouble is, once you get onto a 17-inch, you pretty much have all the problems of an 18-inch, but you don't yet have the advantage of being an 18-inch. So pretty much you might as well go to an 18-inch. And 16.5-inch is just close enough to the 16-inch, it's pretty much useless. So again, 16 above 16.5 to about 18, what about 1.5 inches of space on a capital ship. And in terms of guns, you might as well go for the 18-inch because you're pretty much going to be paying for all the weight and all the costs of the 18-inch anyway. But so if you're going for a 17-inch, it's kind of like, let's say if Porsche produced a 911 with a 1.4, you have a 2-litre engine, if you have the choice of a 1.4-litre engine or a 1.8-litre engine, let's say for your Porsche. You're paying for the same vehicle, you're paying for all the same weight, but if you're putting in a 1.4 versus a 1.8 and you're selecting that, you are knowingly selecting something which isn't going to be as good. You can make all the case you want about fuel economy and all this stuff, but you want the 1.8. So that's the sort of scenario. That's the thing with the 17 versus the 18-inch gun, which is why people tend to develop the 18-inch gun. But interesting enough, of course, the Americans did actually think that the Japanese had used 17-inch guns for the Yamato class, and the British at one point are reckoning their 17.5-inch guns rather than 18-inch guns. And there are literal engineers and gunnery officers looking at the people who are making assessments going, are you absolutely insane? Well, it's not as if they go for an 18-inch, but what's the point? If you're doing all the costs and all the weight to put a 17.5-inch gun in service, why not go the extra little bit extra and do an 18-inch gun? It's going to give you so many more advantages. But let's be honest, the 18-inch Japanese guns were kind of short on the barrel length. And 10-inch versus 11-inch versus 12-inch guns. I think I've discussed this a fair number of times before, but broadly speaking, 11 to 12-inch, 10-inch, I've already talked about the issues with them, and versus 8-inch gun, it's the same above. 11-inch versus 12-inch is a really interesting discussion, because theoretically, if you've got a longer barrel for the same weight 11-inch, that's just as useful as a 12-inch. But again, 12-inch, if you can make it longer, is going to be better. So it's always a case of, in capital ship guns, you're looking for penetrative capability, and usually the larger shell, everything else being equal, is going to be more penetrative. Because you want to penetrate the armor and you want to cause damage in the insides. That's what you want to do. Right then, what have I got to? Okay. Lion Nexus. Why did Lion-class battlecruisers have the third turret in the middle and not super firing over the fourth? The arm seems to only have a middle turret, just to have the 5 twin 13.5 inch. Literally weight distribution. And it was how they designed it so they could fit in the various gearboxes and gearings, etc. and things to put it in. So that's why the Lion and HMS Tiger are the way they are. Literally it's to do with weight distribution and height of things. And that's what it's like. It works, but also you have to remember the the basic British methodology for designing a battlecruiser hull was take your latest battleship design, thin it up, make it thinner, make it longer, delete a turret, and add more engines. That's it, very much. Engines and boilers. Henk, if a ship was built with 2 Littorio turrets in an AX layout with 16 MZ diesel engines in between on 2 shafts, looking for ships, it seems you could get an 80 to 90 centimeter citadel. Could such a small citadel have reserve buoyancy for a 25,000 ton battleship? 80 to 90 meter. It's going to depend on its depth. It's going to depend on how deep and how strong, how you can protect it. In theory, you could, but in practice, that's not going to leave you much of a wiggle room, Hank. And that's the problem. And that's the main thing you're going to have with the naval architects, is you're going to have worry about wiggle room. You can do it in theory, and if everything goes right, you can be fine. But remembering my own dad's rough rule of thumb calculations he used to teach me on those sort of things, I would say you would be looking for a 25,000-ton battleship. You would be wanting a citadel of 100 to 120 meters, depending on that vessel's that vessel's layout of where its weights and displacements are. Archbishop Banterbury, hello. Make sure I'm not missed anything. I have missed some, but I'll catch up eventually. Post-war, what could the Royal Navy have done to save money to allow itself to upgrade the entire fleet to modern ships such as design Ziva, D cruisers, multi-class, and probably more light ships? Honestly, they'd have had to cut things more drastically. And this is one interesting conversation. I saw this recently again in a comment. Someone said that, the British couldn't pay for the maintenance of Corsairs and Hellcats, which is why they tipped them over the sea. No, that's not it. The rules for the joyous thing that was Lend-Lease was if it was lost in combat, you didn't have to pay for it. And basically, if you kept it operating after the war, you had to buy it. If it, however, was lost at sea, and it didn't matter how it was lost at sea, just it was lost at sea, which is why they tipped them over at sea rather than scrapping them ashore where they could take the parts apart. Because think about it, if you're going to scrap things because of lack of money, you sell them to other people, or you scrap them and take their useful components out. Why do you tip them into the sea? Well, because if it's lost at sea, it counts as being lost, and so you do that, and that means you don't have to pay for them at all. It's a great squeeze for the Treasury. And before someone starts trying to go, well, that means they couldn't afford it. Well, as I've already been over about the Royal Navy post-World War II. Post-World War II, you're dealing with, A, the effect of World War II, and the troubles of that, but also you're affecting the way that Lend-Lease was ended, and the huge issues that caused, which is partially what led to the Marshall Plan being implemented the way it was and Britain receiving so much Marshall aid. Because the way Lend-Lease was ended absolutely destroyed what remained of the British economy. Because the British economy had been structured around Lend-Lease by that point, through 3 years of war, and that had been the economy had been built around it, and then suddenly the Americans decided to end that overnight without any warning. So yeah, basically Great Depression, all sorts of World War One, Great Depression, some very interesting mismanagement by various governments in terms of economics, and World War Two, and then the Lend-Lease shock, and you have a terrible economy at that point. Hello to Fu. What a horrific race on your resources. Yes, but this is the joy of the fine print, and it was, in many ways, the Americans were very pissed off about it afterwards, but the British point out, well, you know what, you ended Lend-Lease overnight, and you're the one who wrote the fine print. So guess what? This is what we're doing. And there ain't nothing you can do about it, because you brought this upon yourselves. There was a little bit of spite going on, I have to admit, in that one as well. I haven't got onto the French boats yet of the fleet, but, I can try. Blackmouse, what if the Americans had built a trio of 14-inch gun battlecruisers, 28 knot, based on Pennsylvania class? How does it affect the Washington treaties and British constructions? I think if the Americans have got a trio of 14-inch gun battlecruisers, 28 knot ships, then in the nicest way, the British are not going to accept probably Renown, Repulse, and Hood as their free battle cruisers, and Tiger. They're probably going to want something else, and they're probably going to want the treaty to adjust. And also, the Americans not going to want to lose those ships, but also not going to want to lose the ships they have. So if you consider Washington ships. Sorry, I'm opening up my Excel spreadsheet. It happens. Washington Treaty, USN. So, the USN, as it was historically, were pretty darn close to the treaty. If they wanted to retain, they either get rid of Florida and Utah, But even then, they're probably not, because if you're talking about some ships based on the Pennsylvania class, which are 31,000 tons normally in standard, so we're going to be talking about something which is 35 to 40,000 tons. You've got an extra 105,000 tons. They're going to have to accept a tonnage increase. There is going to have to be a tonnage limitation increase to keep those ships in service, because you could let Arkansas, Wyoming, Florida, and Utah go, but they're not going to likely do that. They wanted to keep those ships as it was, so you're probably going to have to deal with a tonnage limitation, which is slightly bigger than the 525,000 tons it was historically. So historically, it's 15 ships of 35,000 tons. If you make it 15 ships of 40,000 tons, that's 600,000 tons, which isn't going to be enough. It will be enough for the Americans, won't it? They are 525,000 tons. They have an agreed aim of 558,950 tons. So probably you need about 650. 125,000 tons, 35,000 tons added onto that to take it up to 60. Another 35, 95. Another 35. So basically, if I add on, if I make it up to 20 ships at 15,000, 35,000 tons a piece maximum, then I can do it. So it's 700,000 tons. So that's probably what I have to do. And then they can build more. Then they can actually complete the fourth Colorado. So they could complete Washington. And that would be very attractive. But that's about it. That's their option. If they've got those, that's what they're going to do. And what's it going to do for the British? Well, the British are going to have to build a lot more than Nelson and Romilly. And you're probably going to see some fast battleships built by the British, because it'd be that sort of scenario. In theory, these ships will be built in 1914. Yeah, the British are going to be responding to that earlier on. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. Stephen Richards, questions. If the twins catch Glorious with one of the rebuild cats, what happens? The rebuild cat probably sacrifice itself to take them out. But honestly, so Glorious can escape. But honestly, if Glorious is in company with any other ship, there is going to be an admiral present. There is no chance that you have a rebuilt cat and Glorious there that you do not have a rear admiral on one of those ships. In which case, there is going to be someone sending messages to the captain of Glorious going, "Where the frigate is my air reconnaissance?" And it doesn't matter what other options are going on, what scenarios are going on, there's going to be an aircraft in the air. And as we've always said, if there's aircraft in the air and they spot the twins coming, then there's a lot of nasty British ships around which can be called in. And Glorious and the rebuild cat can probably keep far enough away for long enough for those nasty ships to arrive. So if they have the warning of aircraft, so that's the scenario. That's the likely scenario. Because again, imagine this: a rebuilt battle cruiser and an aircraft carrier sailing in company with each other. A, do you think there's going to be more than 2 destroyers there? And B, there is going to be a rear admiral there at least. There is going to be someone of senior rank there. That is too much firepower concentrated in one place for the Royal Navy to be happy at going anywhere without someone with more gold braid than a captain dangling along. Blackman Maximus, how much more tonnage would the Renown class need to have a 9-inch belt and 4 twin 15-inch guns? And how would they affect it? They'd be pretty much, in the nicest way of that scenario, they'd be pretty much heading for Hood. They would be very different ships. As it was, they are 26,500 tons, which is actually 2,000 tons less than HMS Tiger. So in that scenario, you're probably talking them being about more closer to 35,000 tons, probably. Once you add in increasing the belt by well over, to put it 9 inches. If you want to keep the speed the same, you're probably talking about 35,000 tons. Probably. Some in that region, 30. They might be, if they do it light, they can do it 32,500 tons. If they do it with anything like a normal building capacity, it's going to be roughly 35,000 tons. Carrot 1151. Hello. I've almost caught up. I haven't caught up. I'm well away from catching up. If the Royal Navy could have either all the Queen Elizabeth refitted the same as Warspite, or half refitted the same Queen Elizabeth or Valiant, which option would you go for? All was Warspite. All is Warspite. Because it's better to have them all the same. And then you have 5 ships built to the Warspite standard. That's better than half refitted the same as Queen, or half refitted the same as Queen Elizabeth Valiant. And a Warspite guts the full refit. Seneca, question: how important were ships' boats on dreadnoughts, and where were they stored on dreadnoughts? On the deck, and yeah, they're still important. They're useful for communicating, for moving around, for getting goods and supplies aboard a ship, for admirals going places, for captains going places. They're useful. They're basically, unless before you have helicopters, they're your primary means of getting from A to B if you don't want to take the ship. Barkmasters, does any of the ship shape crew speak French? Parlez-vous anglais? I think probably the best of us is Drac at French. Let's see, Mitchell. When are the results of the writing competition? They're going to be soon, but this has all been delayed by the coughing and the being ill, so that's coming. But I wanted to do a special live video about that and discuss it and all those sorts of things. And yeah, I've been schnookered by this. It's all gonna be running into September, if not October. Black Maximus, what if HMCS Bonaventure was a Central class carrier? Yeah, life would be pretty much the same. Let's be honest, there isn't a massive amount of difference to me. Hank. It seems to me, after looking at design battleship's armor over time, the percentage of weight dedicated to deck armor slowly and then greatly increases after 43. Is it correct to assume this is because of aircraft threats rather than battleship main gun threats? It's a bit of both, because again, the joy of radar fire is you can actually do more accurate plunging fire. But again, the amounts of shells which can guns which can actually angle up high enough to do plunging fire are increasing. But yeah, aircraft are a significant factor to it as well. It's mainly also, especially once you start adding the fact that some people like to stick aircraft and battleship shells on aircraft. Just being cruel. That's just being rude. Favorite drinks other than Iron Brew? Pops, Juice Sect. Volvic Touch of Fruit. I have a lot of the water with things and various things, and yeah, I don't drink alcohol, so I don't drink tea or coffee, or really hot chocolate. So I tend to wander around the soft drinks. I quite like the soft drinks we found in Sweden and Finland. They're pretty nice. The second London Naval Treaty removed limits on how many ships of the treaty nation can have. In theory, if the UK had spare capacity to do so in funding, could they create a 9-12-inch gun large cruiser and an F3 lap with a 9-inch belt in 25,000 tons sand and 32 threading reefs by 3940? Yeah, they could. And again, this is one of the interesting things. As I discussed before, when you're dealing with the British government, you can argue that whilst they get rid of the 10-year rule in 1932, they really don't actually start operating like it's not there until 1937, and because of this there is a lot of delayed reactions. If you've been prepared to spend a lot more money a lot more quickly, you could have got a lot of things into service quickly, because there are yards. One of the interesting things, again, that's quite annoying, there is actually a yard which has the cranes needed for heavy armour. And it's actually, the cranes are actually dismantled in like 1938 from memory. And that's just being stupid. And there are all sorts of things like that the British do. And what's really funny is those cranes, they're dismantled and then they're rebuilt later on. And they're rebuilt in like 1940. Is the story, one of the stories I read. Some of the stories have put it as later, and I think it could be later. But literally, the cranes are dismantled in 1950. There's just some stupid stuff around it. There really is some stupid stuff. Oh great, my sister's baked a cookie dough. And instead of warming, she's baked it into the bowl. This, oh well, could be worse. Fine. I'm sounding very critical of my sister, but she had an idea. We are currently functioning without a cooker in a new property because it's a gas cooker. And both my mum and sister are allergic, and I tried cooking on it without them being any nearby and see if it worked. They still were both coughing and ill as anything, so we're not doing that anymore. Which causes takeaway fun. Anyway, we got some cookie dough covered in chocolate as dessert from one of the places for me and my mum. We didn't eat it all the first night because it's massive and we just didn't. So tonight, tried to reheat it. And let's see if this works. This could end up in my lap. Nope. Just a couple of flakes. Nothing bad. Not moving. It is baked solidly to the bottom. But, good try. Question Jepila, would the Iran Navy have been better off to scrap more big ships faster after World War II? Was it worth keeping illustrious of a middle around, for example? I would say it would have been better to invest in new build ships rather than keep trying to keep the old ships going, but, you know, illustrious of a middle are taking so much damage that it was going to be blooming impossible to fix. But they're kept around for basically supposed to provide cover until you can get the refitted vessels into service. And Yoko before Sundu, did anyone remove useful bits from the aircraft before tipping them over to the side? Officially no, but unofficially they're on they're on an aircraft carrier being tipped over the side with a load of maintainers aboard. So what do you think? Hank, if World War II had not happened and Spain decided not to build versions of Littorios as decided not to, was planned, probably not in the budget, could they use the 15-inch Vickers 1926 guns they had in coastal stations to build 3 battleships? Could it stay enough to make it viable? Not really. Those 15-inch guns are really not necessarily the best for their coastal installations, but they actually probably try. They haven't got enough spare barrels, I think, though, for it. But they could certainly try. They could certainly try to use those. Honestly, Spain's just in so many issues that, frankly, Hank, if they're actually building anything, I'm surprised. Fleet of Oceans. Question. Have you listened to last Monday's ramblings? Yes, I listened to it live. Do you have anything to say on what's currently being discussed? I will join you probably for tomorrow's ramblings. How's that sound? And if I'm well enough to join you, I will discuss this with you then. How's that sound, Fleet? If Black Maximus, Akagi, best girl. If HMS Agincourt, Queen Elizabeth battleship, was an 18-inch gun close to 28 knots, how much tonnage would be needed to have 4 twin 18-inch guns? Well, as I said before, I reckon she'd been a 6 18-inch gun ship, because 4 18-inch guns, 4 twin 18-inch guns, you are looking at, and that sort of speed, you're looking at hood-sized vessel. Not an expanded Queen Elizabeth class, you're looking at a hood-sized vessel. And that's a problem. Channel Lord, Procura Sutter class Star Destroyer, Star Wars question, warship question. What can I say? I've got an hour and 20 minutes. If you want to give it a go, we can have a go. But hopefully I can do one. I am so worried about what Blackburn Maximus has put in this. I'm going to apologise now. This is one of the problems with using Discord. Let's see what's coming. Oh, good lord. JPL, question. Was Adrian Glorious lost because she left when she did and did not operate aircraft because she was too low in fuel? Was Glorious lost because she left when she did and did not? Or was the captain blamed to cover up for the Iron Failing plan for refueling? There's a whole debate as to whether she had enough fuel aboard on her or not. Hello. How are you doing? You're cute. There's a corgi arrived. There's a corgi road. Hello. Hello. How are you? You good? You good boy.
I have decided it is time I went my bye-bye, so I
Okay.
could come and say hello.
That's
in
very
case
kind of you
there
to
was
come
any
say hello
chance.
before you go to sleep.
Just in case there's any chance of any hellos.
I know. You do like to say hello. So, take care, Foo. Yes, the corgi appeared. So basically, my view is Glorious is lost, and my view has always been there are all sorts of ideas about secret plans from missions from Churchill, and there's some interesting work for that. But I think literally it's just one of those scenarios in the fog of war where someone forgets it's wartime. And honestly, they are charging home to get on with the next missions and get ready, and they forget they're in a war and they're in a war zone because it happens. You know, that's the reality. It takes a while, even for the Royal Navy, to remember they're in a war. Yes, the fact is, the Royal Navy starts zigzagging the moment war's declared. In fact, some of the ships were zigzagging before war was even declared. But the fact is, it takes time sometimes to realise you're in a war and learn lessons of war. One is this: your aircraft carrier can really not go. And you just look at it. Some of the mistakes made by the British when it comes to going against their own doctrine, their own operational concept of how to operate with carriers at the beginning of World War II are frankly atrocious. And they are lucky Henderson was dead, because if he wasn't, he would have been committing murder. And that was, of course, the third Sea Lord, who had been the guy who'd been the first rear admiral aircraft carriers, who'd written the frigating doctrine for how to operate aircraft carriers for the Royal Navy, and who'd literally taught it to people. And it was bad enough dealing with his disciples afterwards about it, because there were people like Cunningham, even, who were absolute... Cunningham could not understand how one of his best assets, one of the assets he was hoping to get back in the Mediterranean, aka Glorious and her well-trained strike crew and aircrew, was allowed to wander around with just 2 destroyers as escort. When even peacetime, when we're not at war, as I've said before, the Royal Navy had a problem of, oh, we've got an aircraft carrier going in that direction. Oh, really? Well, there appears to be half a flotilla of destroyers and a light cruiser wandering in the same route. Oh, that's a big surprise. They'll all just randomly travel kind of close to each other. And just that's how the British worked. Question I've asked for all meme about the ultimate British machine spirit with Warspite, New Zealand, and Tribals. What would the US equivalent be? Oh, it's got to be something centered on Enterprise. Enterprise. And there's a few other there's a few things as well. Texas, definitely. Enterprise and Texas have got to be part of that. And the trouble is, it's trying to pick which of their destroyers to put in there. We all know which class they should come from, but which bloom destroyers are the set? Tribals are easy, there's a few of them. But you just know Eskimo, Cossack, Asante, Tartar are going to be there, Nubian's going to be there, you know, Hyder's going to be there, Huron probably. Arunta, I wouldn't be surprised, is there. You know, that sort of thing. You know these ships are going to be there. Hank, if you were role-playing in High 4 and 1936, Germany's not building any other ships, not constructing a Z-plan infrastructure, how many 25,000-ton ships could they lay down? Oh, the thing is, the problem for the Germans, as I've said before, is not only that their construction infrastructure has been mauled by Versailles, but it's because they keep growing what they want to build. They keep having to muck around with their existing infrastructure to build it to the level it can build what they want to build, because it's been let to rot. Okay, the Treaty of Versailles was designed to do that. Again, it's not a critique of Germans. It's the way the system was designed to cause it. Yes, it worked as planned. So Probably they could be building any 6 of those ships roughly at that size at that time, but that's because I'm talking about yards which are actually able to construct it, have the ability to move the arm around, have the ability to construct to that standard, have enough personnel to construct it, and actually have their ships in the condition they can do. Probably about 6 at max they construct in time. Sustainment-wise, when it comes to engine manufacture and gun manufacture, I think you're probably limited to about 4 at any one time, but you could stagger it, so you could sort of be in phases of pair, laying down a pair every 6 months, so you could stagger it all. The Sullivans, potentially. Johnson and Samuel B. Rhodes, definitely, but they're definitely 2 of them. But, you know, if you got an entire flotilla of destroyers, you're talking about 8 destroyers. You can name, we can confirm 3, but pick the next 5 and try not to kill yourself over it. Because in my mind was going, oh, well, I could be this one, this one, this one, this one. I'm just going, I'm giving up. Take care, Fu. Go in. Have Corgis always gotten that big? That Corgi definitely believes he's always gotten that big. That Corgi is... what I should always point out about Zebedee is that his parents still do, both his mum and dad, as I understand, still do the herding thing. He comes from Corgis which are still used for herding. So, yeah. Hello. Hello. You've come to say hi. You've come to say hi to everyone, have you? Let me in a second sort some stuff out. You've come to say hi. Ugh. Hello. Oh, hello. Oh, good God, good God. I'm being taken over by a poodle. Hello. Yes, you've come to say hello. Good, good, good. You enjoyed it. You're going to have any questions? You're just going to hide in here. Are they trying to do things for you? Are they trying to make you actually go out in the garden in the cold and exercise? Are they not taking care of their fluffy puppy? You're trying to get up in my lap. Oh, up we come. Oh, good God. Oh, hello. How would you pronounce USS Oscar Austin DGG 79 in French? No idea. Ask Drac. He's better at French than I am. I'm going to put those down. Hello. Oh, good God, or I'm going to lose them. Hello. Yes. So hopefully the sound stays okay. Hello. Question. Warspite was pretty beat up for a museum ship. Would Queen Elizabeth step in instead? She could do. She's not quite as beat up, but she's she's next best one in the Queen Elizabeth class in terms of her history. What are you doing? What are you doing? What do you think of the Kantai Collection new ship girl HMS Valiant? Certainly looks like a Valiant personality. Oh, dang, I was hoping there was more questions. Go in. Question. Have you ever played Rule the Wave series? Yes, and it's a pretty good one. The third, I don't... When was the last time I played the third one? Haven't played the third one in a while. I've got more memories of playing the second, which was always fun. I found it rather D&D like, but unlike D&D, I don't have the fun of winding up the Dungeon Master, because that is how you win D&D. By the way, please note, that is how you win D&D. By making the Dungeon Master reach the point at which they are screaming at you to go away and never darken their door ever again. That's how you won. Alex, second holiday question. When we were on Victory, Kath asked when the wooden masts were replaced with the metal versions, and I said it had something to do with a suffering issue while she was neglected singing 8 times. How much problem was it to refloat Victory in that period and complete repairs and age after the start of the Ironclads? A huge issue. Do you actually want dinner, or do you want to stay here looking at saying hello to people? Hello, Bijan. Thank you, Bijan. Oh, God. Oh, hello. You've had dinner. You're happy to go for dinner, are you? Oh, dinner is. Go on. No, she hasn't brought dinner with her. Oh, yeah, that's terrible. You want dinner, but you don't want to go for dinner. You want it to be brought with you. Oh, God, help me. Hello, yes. Oh.
Dinner's in the kitchen.
Dinner's in the kitchen, apparently. Yes, dinner's in the kitchen. My very well behaved dog, dinner is in the kitchen. You don't want enough dinner. Oh, okay. So yes, how much problems reflect victory in the time period? Complete repairs in nation. They had to get a lot of old people out of retirement, and a lot of people who had basically worked for people who knew what they were doing to try and figure out from a lot of stories and history what they were supposed to do. There you go. There's sausage in that. Please don't jump off and use your... I'm putting the hand over it. This could hurt. He's not sure he wants to go anywhere for just, you know...
You alright?
Give me a second.
That was 2 out of 2 today, wasn't it?
Just need to walk it off a bit, okay? Just need to walk it off a bit. Okay, where was I? Where was I? Okay. Oh. 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 Let's see. Where was I? Yeah, so they got it through, but it was a bit of a nightmare, and there were several interesting decisions made, and then there seemed even more interesting decisions made in about the 1930s, and then even some really interesting decisions made in the 1960s, and they were all made in the best evidence and discussions at the time. But it's a case of now looking back at them, they were horrendous. It's one of those scenarios where you can look back and go, I don't want to judge the people involved. They're making the best decisions they could at the time with the resources they had available, knowledge they had available at the time. But now looking back, they could have done something worse if they tried. But at least they were preserving the ship, so that should account for something. Black Maximus, despite the Hawkins class fighter, was there any early attempts to look at post-invincible class 9.2-inch armed steam turbine cruisers? Yeah, there were. It's a constant theme. There's a constant looking at it. It's realised very quickly once you get past the invincible class that battle cruisers are growing larger, and they're not going to take over the role which you had visually considered for them. Originally, they were supposed to also be the squadron distant sort of station flagships, and they're getting too big for that. You're going to have one of them at the core stations, like the Australia station, because the Australians have one. And you're probably going to have a British one at the China station, but you're not going to have one for the Indian Ocean, you're not going to have one for the South Atlantic, and all those things, and so you need something else for those. And you're not going to have them in enough to provide the support you need to the light cruisers, etc., to do their job. So, yeah. That's the reality of fun. Question: it's often covered about how much Versailles crippled the German shipbuilding, but in the audience, how much usable real estate could have been built as shipyards? That's an interesting question, but there is quite a lot of shipyards which are turned into real estate. and factories and other things, and that's an issue for the Germans. That's an issue for the British. That's an issue for a lot of people. Basically, the big advantage, and this is where you get into trouble often when you start doing alternate histories and discussions, is because people look at the sheer potential of the Americans to build yards, and they do, and the British, it's reactivating infrastructure, but there is a ceiling to that before they have to start building infrastructure. And one of the things the British have to do is build more cranes. Luckily, they do have a store of quite heavy cranes, and again, they're also modifying quite a lot of dry docks, and some of the listed lengths of dry docks given is not actually quite correct. Because the British have a habit of listing what part of the dry dock they've upgraded. So if they've upgraded the mill bit and then technically filled in the end bits with, let's say, concrete, or even sometimes they just filled it up. They just put in a concrete wall and put in some earth, and therefore they've shortened the dry dock. And they actually during, again, in wartime, they have lengthened the dry docks by getting rid of that bit. And sometimes they do that because they build the dry dock out to make it deeper, and they don't need this bit anymore because it's stuff they have to maintain, so they fill up this end with earth and a wall. It's all sort of fun and games, but it's things you can modify. It does cause an interesting discussion when you're talking about how do you maintain this stuff. And if you build a 4.5 to 6,000 ton light cruiser with 3 double 5-inch guns and space for 2 torpedo boats, would this be a good capital escort ship in World War II? That's terrible for that amount of weight. Don't take this wrong way, Hack, but that's terribly inefficient. If you only got 3 double 5-inch guns, i.e. 6 guns, you are well, 6 5-inch guns, you're well unarmed. The Aerofuser class are better armed than that. So the 2 torpedo boats is interesting. You might have your own torpedo launchers, but having your own torpedo boats, that's something you could go for. It's something you'd have to look at the design of before you could work out how good it would be. But honestly, that doesn't sound like enough firepower for that size ton vessel. I would say I'd want at least 7 twin 5-inch guns, especially if I was going for a decent dual purpose. How'd you go, Richard's question? This new question system is great. You can see who's typing questions. You're going past 10 o'clock. Am I going past 10 o'clock? It's 9 o'clock, so there's an hour. I've got an hour, according to my watch. Check everything. Yeah, I've got an hour. I've just had a suggestion come from Gareth that I should do an IKEA phone. Every time I hit the cost of enough money to buy another Kallax, which, by the way, I think they're about 60 quid. I should do another weird, funny story. I don't know. I might set up and do that. I'll do that sort of thing. It's possibly necessary. Especially as I'm having to pay for people to do stuff which I was planning on doing myself. It's so annoying. It's so frustrating. I will survive. I will survive. Oh. I was looking forward to putting up shelves, but Kallaxes are coming. Lots of Kallaxes. Lots of Kallaxes. Hello, Melanie. Yes, an actual live. Okay. As a continuation of my first question, same scenario. In Brest, the remaining 4 Normandies appear in the Sana all-turbine carrier conversion. Ooh, interesting. In Kiel, the Frida Flingers appear in 1918 configuration. In San Diego, the 4 remaining Lexingtons appear in battlecruiser configuration. In Nagasaki, Tosa, Ki, and Amagi appear in battleship and battlecruiser configuration. In Toronto, the 4 Caracola battleships appear, and in Sydney, the 6 Invincibles and Indefatigable appear. Again, 1980 conversion. All brand new. Who laughs and who cries? Well, the Japanese are going to be laughing to an extent because they've got a sudden massive increase in capability. If this is 1939, the French are going, okay, we've got some really good carriers now. We better put some carrier aircraft aboard them. The Flingers appear, that's gonna worry the British quite a lot, because the Flingers are interesting vessels. 1918 configuration though is not necessarily good, because that means Seydlitz is post Jutland, when she is being held together, but she is still the ship which has survived Jutland. I think the USN are going to be quite happy, because they've got some very fast ships. But I think the Japanese are probably almost the happiest, but it's going to be the Italians, who've just got 4 extra Caracolas, because now, frankly, as far as the British are concerned, they're the biggest, most annoying threat in the world as far as the British are concerned. They've got Littorias coming, so they've got the Caracolas. The British are just going to be going, frigate. I mean, the British are going to put pedal to the metal of building everything they can. And the idea of any pause being justified at any point by Winston Churchill is just not going to happen in carriers and cavalry ships. I think if that happens in 1939, there's just going to be a panic in Whitehall. But Maximus, what ships' names would you like the Royal Navy to reuse in the future? I've said before I would like Eskimo to be reused and Nubian, but I doubt they're going to be. I think the battle class are probably the closest I'm going to get. So battle class, I'd like the future Type 83s to either be admirals or battles. And I don't think Hood's going to count, but I wouldn't mind Nelson and Romney. And a few others. Question 16. What if the Americans didn't agree to 14-inch guns in the Second London Territory? How would this change King George V? They'd have to be 16-inch gun ships. At that point, the British might be going, yes, we're going to make these 14-inch gun ships, but if no one's agreed to that, then you have a problem, and they're going to have to go to 16-inch or possibly to go to 15-inch design. That's the other option. A 15-inch design is really interesting, because if they go to 15-inch design, they can upgrade the other 15-inch ships. Because the 15-inch 50 is a good gun. And the 15-inch 45, which is what they have on the books at that point being developed, is a very good gun. And Warspite, Renown, Repulse, Hood, all those things, getting 15-inch 45s would be a viable thing to do, because the 15-inch 45 was actually a lighter barrel than the 15-inch 42. So you could do the upgrade relatively easy. And it could fit in because of the way the British ships are designed. So you could have actually upgraded the British battle fleet and the British 15-inch gun ships very quickly and very easily with that. So they might go to 15-inch gun. We can hope. And it would be a 9 15-inch gun ship, the King George V. So they would be triple turrets, which would mean they wouldn't have the problem of quad turrets, which, as we all know, have issues. And so you wouldn't have had necessarily the same problems of Prince of Wales. Plus, you could use the 15-inch 45 use the same ammunition as 15-inch 42, so you wouldn't have to do 14-inch ammunition manufacture. You'd just be concentrating on 15-inch shells. So that's going to save logistic things. There's a lot of advantages to doing it, actually. It really is a far more sensible route to go. Question from Anuk. US had to remove 17 USNS from service due to manning shortages. Does the RFA also have similar issues? Yeah, they have all sorts of issues going on. It's mainly due to, again, recruiting for the logistics side, etc., and making the case you need to do a decent recruitment for it. It always used to be, but, you know, it's fairly easy to recruit. They'll want to serve, it's guaranteed service. Well, no, they can earn a lot more doing other things, so you need to make sure you've got a good, viable recruitment going on. Because at the end of the day, people might want to serve, they might be very patriotic, but they've also got to put food on the table and on their family's table. They've got to be able to take care of the people that matter to them. And that means you have to think about what you're selling them, what you're giving them. Magnus, which of the pre-1914 British battlecruisers would you wish had been turned into a museum ship? I think HMS Invincible herself, the first one, would have been quite a good one to have, because it would have been the first battle cruiser. Question 18. What does the first London Naval Treaty say about seaplane carriers? Not much, really. Not much. They're included under auxiliaries. And they're basically just in there, because by that point, they're not really being thought about in the same way as aircraft carriers. Runon, question. If Admiral Henderson continuously managed to outfox the shipyard shutdown committees, how much further along is the Royal Navy build-up program at the time of the capital ship pause? Okay, he outfoxed them pretty well, but yes, if he managed to outfox them completely, you could have had a second Vanguard ordered, and you probably would have had the carriers ordered earlier. And who knows what that means. And in terms of the carriers, when I say ordered earlier, I mean the four illustrious class would have been ordered earlier, and so would have been further along. So they could have been all in service or coming into service end of 1939, beginning of 1940. So yeah. In other words, they could have been all closer to the level of illustrious. Shannon, would it be possible to engineer a treble dual-purpose gun? They actually did try to do that with the 4.5-inch and the 4.5-inch and the 5-inch, and it runs into the same problem of that you have with treble guns at any point. Is the issue with the central gun and its effect on the outside of two guns, on their effect on it, worth the cost of installing it? And you come to the same problem as you had with the treble 4-inch that were put on Renown and Repulse when they came into service in other British ships around that time. It really isn't. It's a lot of complication, a lot of extra weight, a lot of extra bulk for not enough of an advantage. The twins are a better option to go. But yes, it's possible to engineer it. It's just not worth it. Steve, Steve, how, not another question, hovercraft as coastal mine layers, practical, discuss? Interestingly enough, there is at least one service in the British Armed Forces which has looked into this. A few others which have considered the idea of using hovercraft as mine layers. And basically the argument is not necessarily a sensible idea. Because whilst they theoretically have advantages, they also have the problem of if their skirt gets damaged, they're in real trouble. And there's other issues, but they keep looking at hovercraft is something they always return to, because the idea is so cool. At a certain point, you look at it and go, well, ground pressure wise, yeah, this won't set off the mine, so we can drop the mines and we can actually float over the minefield. Great. Is it actually going to work like that? Well, no. But it's a nice idea to have. Sheridan, if Admiral Henderson survived healthy until December 1939 or January 1940, and then was infirm but functional until April 1940, which projects would he have pushed most and which would he have made the biggest impact? Carriers. He would have pushed the carriers. And he would have pushed the carriers and probably the destroyer construction. And they would have had a big impact. There is a really interesting comment made by, not Cunningham, is it Fraser? It's one of the admirals in one of their private notes, one of the senior ones, basically on lines of sometimes they just refer to Henderson as the Third Sea Lord. It's like they refer to others by name as admirals, but they refer to Henderson as the Third Sea Lord. And you go, well, who are they talking about? And it's kind of like when the Royal Navy is referring to a certain French admiral as the Admiral. He is the Third Sea Lord, or 3SL. And you look up Macho and go, oh, they're talking about Henderson. Oh, that's interesting. And basically there's quite a few people who feel that if he had been still around, Churchill would not have got to pause the carriers. He could still probably have paused the capital ships, but he wouldn't have got to pause the carriers. And that would have had a big impact, because it would have meant you would have been able to have more capability to sustain the carriers and the carrier forces. You've had to disperse the experienced personnel more quickly. So if you'd had the illustrious class entering service more quickly, then those experienced key personnel who were lost on Glorious and Courageous would have actually been dispersed aboard those ships more quickly. So whilst you'd have had less capable crews, more trainees aboard those ships, you'd have had the senior ones spread out more, so you wouldn't have lost as much much cultural memory and institutional memory and experience on those two ships. So it's an interesting impact is the carriers, and that's probably what he'd be working on. And that would have an impact. It would have a cumulative impact because, again, let's put it this way, as we've talked about before, let's say you have a second carrier available for Taranto. That's going to have a huge impact on that operation. And if you have a second, if that affects the size of the Italian fleet and what they're requiring from the British, that's going to affect what the British have available to go to the Far East. If you have more carriers around, let's say, for the not even Norway, but for Bismarck operation, let's say Hood and Prince of Wales have a carrier with them. Well, that's going to change their operational strategy. That's going to change what's going to happen because they're going to have a carrier providing up-to-date information probably of where the enemy is, but also striking. Victorious launches strike from long range. So does Ark Royal. Imagine another carrier sitting there doing more strikes. You don't have to have many more carriers in service to see, and a second carrier at Taranto to see another carrier at that sort of scenario. It doesn't have to go up by that much in numbers. So that's the reality. This Dingus Fodorfa, my own magnetic mind would love having a hovercraft driver. Yes, there are all sorts of fun issues on that front. Black Maximus, if you hit 15,000 subs, would you watch The Princess Bride? I have a whole thing which I'm going to listen to because I'm planning. I was planning a Historiathon in October, which does include a thing of if I raise this much money, I will watch Princess Bride. And basically that's to fund things like For the Office, but also to fund some various history trips and to allow me to do some things for all of you, honestly, as well. So it's basically, it's kind of like I want to do this stuff, but I can't do this stuff as it currently is, and especially with the way my ability to earn money other ways has been affected by pneumonia and this stuff. I've really sort of pushed it through and put the ideas to have together, and it's a long discussion going on about that. Mainly with I had to say Gareth the Brit because he's usually my mentor on these things because he's so smart on them. Going question: were Imperial German turrets as horribly oversized as their later counterparts? They were definitely interesting organisation. Hank, if you teleport them in, how many torpedo boats would you need for speed to definitely win Battle of River Plate? A lot. Definitely win. 24. 24 torpedo boats probably gives them a chance of a good, decent chance of winning. If you want to definitely win, you're just going up to go up numbers. You're just talking. Once you phrase that as definitely win, before anyone starts critiquing, no, he could have done it with just half a dozen. Once you phrase it as definitely win, you need to ensure you have overmatch. So a dozen to 2 dozen is probably the right number for definitely win. And that's what I'm translating definitively, as I'm presuming it means definitely. If you mean divinely win, well, I suppose another 2 when they divinely win by putting 2 torpedoes, but that doesn't seem right, and I don't think that's right from your normal phrase, Hank. So I'm going to go with definitely wins. Black Maximus, when Italy joins the Germans in 1940, all the slow British battleships are turned into Nelson class. What happens? So basically, all the R's become Nelrods. Someone cries. A slow point of crying takes place. So they are actually faster than the R's, and B, that's going to cause trouble because you suddenly have Nelson and Rodney's in all sorts of places, and you definitely don't want to be in a Scharnhorst going up against a Nelrod. You definitely, even Littorios going up a Nelrod are going to go, I can win. I have a chance, but it's not a good chance. I can win this as long as I can keep at range and my shells work. And I have a bit of luck on my side. But the trouble is, all those three things added together for the Italians rarely happen. Quality control of shells is the first thing lesson now. It's annoying for the Italians. They're very good. Quality control, not so good. I would say, I'm just going to putting through a number of questions and thinking about it is, I've got 45 minutes going on, so there are more questions coming in, but at a certain point the questions are probably, someone's going to have to work out how far behind and how long till I catch up, because I think I'm roughly about 20 minutes behind. Right, so when answer that one, but yeah, basically nightmare for the Italians, and the Germans also have a bit of a nightmare. Because just think about it. If you've got a Nelrod, if you've got that many Nelrods, that means you now have 7 Nelrods in service. That's going to help the British out tremendously. That's 7 16-inch gun battleships. Yes, they have the light battleship guns, but they're not exactly bad. And they are capable of doing their job. And they are still 7 battleships. I know, in your CV, your escort carrier lecture, Anok, you asked what modern Brazilian ships could be converted to CVs. I don't think US or UK have yard capacity conversion. Also, China majority would still have capacity. Interesting enough, the British do. There's a yard actually not far away from me which could actually do conversions. Falmouth. It's one of those interesting scenarios. There are yards which could handle conversions. Falmouth is actually a really interesting yard. If you go and look, it's below Pendennis, right? Can't take the biggest merchant ships, but it can take some quite interesting range. And they do a lot of maintenance for the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. And it's a lovely yard. It's an absolutely lovely yard. Lovely views. And sits in the Foul Estuary, of course, at Falmouth. So it makes sense. It's Foul Estuary. And there's lots of yards around the UK like that, which keep going, doing sort of specialist stuff, which could actually do those sort of things. But yeah, you would need a design to be built. It's problematic because basically most of the Western yards, especially the small to medium ones, have survived by specialising and not getting into the mass production stuff, which also means that they tend to be very well known in their sphere of work, but not really well known outside of it, and therefore far more exposed if that sphere of work gets in any way turned down in that industry. Thanks for on. Yeah, close about 21:40 hours, so I don't, miss any questions. Hank, could the C-33 mounts be adapted to 120mm alpha for base 105? They're an open framed mount, aren't they? The answer is yes, if they want to put the money into research and development. The reality is, if they did that, I'd be very happy with them. I doubt they would, but they could do that. But they need to do some development work to make it work. Blackmus, what if the second London Naval Treaty escalation course allows for the heavy cruisers to hit 15,000 tons of sand? What would the British Americans do with that increase? Oh, that would mean the British would definitely produce a 9.2-inch gun cruiser. and the Americans will probably try and produce some sort of Alaska on 15,000 ton standard. That's possibly the scenario, but it would be an interesting wing of. The British would be these. This is guns. This is designed for 8-inch turret, 8-inch barrels. Honestly, it's designed for 8-inch barrels on its turrets, kind of like fitted for, not with, and water for based armor. And the Americans would be, we're building this. We are building this with intention of putting 8-inch guns. And then the moment it gets to 1939, they're getting 12-inch. Probably about 6 of them. Hank, if Japan built G-14 carriers at a free motor, could this look from the war? Look, the main problem with lengthening the war, you could lengthen the war with the existing Japanese assets if you can actually get more deployable aircraft. And getting the deployable aircraft, the shortage is always pilots because of how slow they have to be dragged through to expand the train system. I've discussed this on the Japanese Naval Aviation, Naval Air Service formations video. The Japanese have a lot of good ideas there. They have a lot of potential ideas there. They don't necessarily follow through them. And they find it difficult to implement. So, whilst yes, having more carriers might have given them an advantage, that's going to have to be coupled with an expansion and reform of their training parameters for their naval aviators. But honestly, the Yamatos could have been more useful if they actually used them for the deterrence value they had, according to their own doctrine. Blackman Maximus, how much rules lawyering could the IJN have done with seaplane carriers after the first London Naval Treaty? Could they have made them easy to convert to useful, semi-useful aircraft carriers? Yes. Yes, and yes, you could have done that. British were honestly looked at doing that. Hank, how effective was the French quad 5.1-inch dual-purpose guns? Not very effective. They had a lot of ideas. Oh, good Lord. USS Phoenix now? I'm sure USS Phoenix is happy with their representation. I'm going to have to figure out a way to block these, aren't I? Or I'm going to get overload with them. I'm sure the Phoenix is happy with that representation. Especially Dorothy-style heels. At least that's what my cousins called them, so I hope that's correct. How likely is it that the British, if the British get stuff like Swordfish early enough, that all the torpedo bombers that precede it in the Iron Service aren't adopted? If you got the Swordfish early enough, why would you adopt less capable aircraft? If you have the Swordfish, why would you adopt something like, I don't know, the Blackburn Shark? I was heard of this one actually. The Blackburn Seal? You know, any of the Blackburn, you know, this is the trouble, is why would you have if you've got the Swordfish in service, let's say 1924, why would you adopt something less capable at the same time as operating the Swordfish? No, you'd operate the Swordfish. You'd then be working on something more capable than the Swordfish to adopt. So anyway, what other terrible idea like hovercrafts do navies always return to? What are some examples from history? Oh, the one that's always popular, and have a look at this, is the idea of a small networked group of ships that will work together. The small boat flotilla. They are always loving and returning to that idea. Everyone's always returning to the idea of, let's distribute among smaller ships. And you go, okay, I'll wait about a year and a half. And then they come back to you about a year and a half later and go, you know what, it's really difficult because we want to do this, this, this. And then we realise if we want to have redundancy within the force, we need the ships to all be able to do this, this, this. Yeah, and we end up with ships which are already this big, this, this, this. And honestly, the cost differential between doing that and doing that. And then we have to maintain this and this, and you go, really? If you're going to list this all out again, can I get a, I don't know, something delivered to eat? I think we all want something delivered to eat. while he's talking. Loaded nachos, anyone? Loaded chips? Something nice, some nice finger food? Oh, keen on that? They're just looking at you going, but what? We told you. We told you before you began. You still wanted to go do it. You go do it. You want us to hear you talk about it, like the half a dozen other people before you who've all done the same thing. Please, we will do. But if we're going to have to sit here and lose another 4 hours to our lives over this topic, we want at least some nice food while we're doing it. Oh, and by the way, you're paying. I can't think why I don't get invited to more meetings in person. Question 229 from Night Ground. If in the end of World War One, the Royal Navy found the 5 Codus SBC-4 Cleveland Mark 1 that were shipped on HMS Furious in August 1940, how do you use them and how does that change things? They probably take them apart. They find them in the end of World War One. The RN's going to take them apart. That is what they don't need to use them at that point. They don't need them at that point. They're going to take them apart to study them. Not necessarily a great technological base, but it's going to be an interesting starting point. I've answered the USS Phoenix one. Question is, are the SGS Z1 to Z6 considered by the German Navy successors to the Old World II German Z1s S6? I don't think they are, really. I don't think so. I think they're more considered their new ships. Jeff, would Henderson have allowed his carriers to be used the way they were in 1949 during which Trader's Glorious were lost? Oh no, I can imagine the conversation now. So, you know, the old Clarke and Ori coming into part of going, well, I try my best in Norway. You have a meeting with the Third Sea Lord. What? You have a meeting with the Third. But I'm an Admiral of the Fleet. You have a meeting with Henderson. But I'm Admiral of the Fleet. You have a meeting with Admiral Henderson. Mummy? Because Clarke and Ori was a very good captain, and he was a half-decent peacetime admiral, and perfectly fine, but he was an absolutely terrible admiral when it came to Norway, and he was other weird things during World War II, including trying to lead a court-martial at Somerville at one point, which almost caused Cunningham and half a dozen other admirals to resign. So he's an interesting gent. I have a feeling he'd have had a interesting conversation with Henderson along lines of, so you allowed a carrier to go off with 2 destroyers as escort for no good reason. Well, I know you had, by the time he'd finished, I'm fairly sure Lord Clarke and Ori would have had his life flash before his eyes several times in that conversation, and be utterly certain that he was about to be ordered to commit suicide, or at least leave the country. Actually, no, if they were sensible, he just would never return to the country. The Royal Navy would find a way to send him away to America straight away. For his own survival. As for the using the fleet carriers for anti-submarine warfare operations, that would have been fine. Henderson would have accepted that, but he would have had a conversation with the sloop leaders, probably, and there would have been a pair of sloops detailed to each carrier as carrier guards for the operation. And how much faster could he have got the Illustriouses? They would have been in service. There would have been no delay with the Illustriouses and probably none with the Indefatigables and certainly not with Unicorn. They would have just all entered service as they were expected to. Probably a bit quicker. Especially if the capital ship pulls, he'd have just had the people transfer over to carriers. At least it's closer in the build specs. Black Maximus. If Fisher had been limited to 9.2-inch guns with building cruisers under the capital shipbuilding suspension in 1-1, would he have built the Courageous class as useful armoured large light cruisers or something different? Probably usual large armoured cruisers. Probably with something like 12 9.2-inch guns or something like that. Probably about the same weight as well. And he might have built more of them, honestly. Nice to go from. Why is it not known why 4 Vought F8 and Crusader Dassault Sard 4 and 2 Britique crashed while operating off aircraft off the carrier Clemenceau? B. Why is it not known? Often the reason A, you have to go and read the design the actual crash crash reports to try and sort of see if you can work out why. Usually reading between the lines, it comes down to as, we don't know because we couldn't actually examine the aircraft. We have a running guess, but yeah, we're not sure. And especially if the crew go down with the aircraft, then you have pretty much no clue as to what went wrong. And that's sometimes temptation when they go, we're going to blame this on human error. But there's sometimes people are honest and go, we haven't got the foggiest, and blaming on human error just because we don't have anything better is not exactly an honourable way to go. Maxus, the Princess Bride sounds like a good funding goal. Would a really high funding goal be having to watch Azure Lane episode 2? I think I've already said it. Sort of the Princess Bride is a very high funding goal. I'm not adding any more. You know, nicest way. If you make me watch Princess Bride, it's going to be a long time before you can make me watch Azure Lane. Look, I enjoyed Carl. I actually. Here's one of the fun things, okay? In preparation for next year and various other things for Japan and working with Japanese, I have been trying to do a lot of Japanese cultural learning recently so I can understand their culture better. And I have managed to do that all without watching Azure Lane, which is a skill when you're a naval historian looking for Japanese culture. Mainly I've been known looking though for the Japanese Ryokusans. I think that's the right name for their natural hot spring baths and inns, and I think those would be a lovely place for me to take the shipshape crew. I think they would have a wonderful time, and I think I would probably lose at least 2 of them in the hot water for a week. Pardon me. When the attack on Pearl Harbor happens, all the British battleships get turned into Lion class and carriers into Malta class with Hawker Sea Furies and ferry soldiers. How long does the war last? So Pearl Harbor happens 1941. The British carriers, would include, if all the carriers get turned into Malta class, that's going to include the Hermes, which is already out in the Far East, so that's going to go with Force Z at that point. Finding the aircraft for all these multi-class is going to be interesting, but if they come with air groups, great. If they don't come with air groups, that's fine. You can still, you're probably getting a lot of Hurricanes converted, because that's going to be the only aircraft they're going to have in numbers. There's going to be a lot of Sea Hurricanes made. Quickly. Possibly purchasing more from the Americans, but I think Sea Hurricanes are going to be it. What happens? Well, USS Robin is going to be a very different piece of history. Honestly, that's going to scare the freak out of the Americans. The illustrious, the conversion of illustrious and formidable, sitting in docks being repaired into those sorts of carriers are going to be interesting. And the long-term impact of it all, every British carrying service is probably going to include Argus gets converted to it. The British are going to be very happy for Furious gets converted into it. Indomitable. It is to say every single carrier in all the British battleships get and carriers, so it doesn't necessarily need the ones in service, it could also be the ones in construction, so yeah. The British are going to have one of the largest, most powerful carrier fleets in the world in that scenario, and the battle fleet's going to be pretty hard, because again, the thing about Lion class is you're going to have now 2 Lion class sitting as Force Z when it's made up. You're going to have all your R class, everything are going to be going to be Lion class, so you might well not send just 2 ships. It's going to change a lot of your metrics. It's going to change a lot of metrics for the Germans. It's going to change a lot of metrics for the Italians. If all the Queen Elizabeth class are now Lion class, all the remaining R's are Lions, So that's 9 Lions, all with 9 16-inch guns and 20 knots of speed. It's all the battleships. So actually, no, I did a total lie when I said Repulse is replaced, but Repulse and Renown become the only two which are still around, which are not Lions. All the remaining Nelson, Rodney are going to be Lions. That's going to be an improvement, but yeah. All the King George V's in service are going to be Lions. That's King George V. That's Duke of York. That's Prince of Wales. Just think about that. The British are going to end up with what? 4 plus 5 at that point. Plus 2. So that's 11. Plus 3, so 14 Lions. Yeah. 14 Lions in service. That's going to change things, because they go to have a battle line of 28 knots, and they have all their battleships are 28 knot ships. All their battleships are 16-inch gunships. 9 16-inch gunships. That changes the metric for the Germans if they come out. It changes the metrics for everyone. And sorry, it changes the metrics for the Italians, because now the Italians, there is no scenario where a Littorio does well against a Lion. They are very different generations of ships. Yeah, it's just not good. Black Moses, what if the IJN had similar pilot training program to the British Americans? Then that could really lengthen the war, because they would have a lot more aircrew coming through. But you'd have to make that program to somehow fit the Japanese culture and perception of naval aviation. And that's a massive ask. It's not something which is impossible to do, but it is a massive ask to do. Steve, on Kerr's ship, how it is, where do hydrofoils come on that spectrum? Very high up. They love the idea of the speed. They don't love the idea of actually keeping it survivable. And then there's the whole balance of metacentric height search. Bruno, does the LCS concept work if the speed requirement is dropped into the 30s instead of 40 plus 1? It could do. It could do, because that can make a lot of interesting things possible with their engines and with their hull design. But it was trying to make them speedboat fast while also still being jacks of all trade that really made your life a nightmare on them. Hank, if the Italians kept developing the Fiat A6 engine and managed to start the war with it, introducing 1500 horsepower reliability, how much could this change the war in the mid? It could give the Italians a very good strike capability. And how would that change the war in the mid? It's going to depend how they use it. Because the thing is, again, these things are going to be cumulative. But again, the problem is, if the Italians do that, that's not going to happen in a bubble. Okay? It's not going to happen in isolation. It's going to be picked up on. There's going to be a lot of work done as a result. You could find the British actually have a better radar system, etc., over Alexandria and places like that. As a result, they might even have mobile radar deployed to Crete. And let's be honest, mobile radar deployed to Crete could have been more of an... Well, if they'd had it in capability, they could have deployed it more capable and more interesting. It's a fun thing. 6831. Question 2 to 6. Would the British, if the 40mm Bofors AA gun shortages had not happened, go for a mixed approach with 40mm pom-pom, 40mm Bofors and 20mm Oricons? Potentially, but potentially not, because let's be honest, if you're carrying 2 different 40mm ammunition systems on your ship, that's going to cause stowage issues, and that could cause other problems in things being wrong thing being loaded on the spot. If the 14-inch cats was around mid-30s, Hood goes in to be modernised. When Hood comes out, is she a fast battleship? No. No. Hood is a battle cruiser design which has been evolved into a battle cruiser. Evolving her into a fast battleship is going to take a lot of work and a lot of subdivision to be added into her hull to turn her from cruiser subdivision, cruise level subdivision to battleship level subdivision, and to do the work inside her hull. So, and to increase the armor coverage, etc. So, no, this is one of those things I had discussions I have with people. And me and Drac have it for fun. And if you really want to scare people, me and Drac having that conversation is going to torture a lot of people within range who are not interested in naval affairs within range. So we try not to do it that often unless people are being really weird. And literally the argument is over the Congos, over their subdivision. Because some people go, they're armoured up, they've got this, they're now fast battleships. And my view is they're not, they're battle cruisers. They're still battle cruisers. But the thing is, they are also closer to fast battleships at certain points, depending on which one you're talking about, because of the subdivision increase inside them. And they start off as battle cruisers, one word, and they are close to the fast battleship anyway. But they're still battle cruisers, but they're also battleships, fast battleships, in some ways, depending on which one you're talking to, because some of them actually have enough subdivision they actually cross that line, and some don't. Which was probably a confusing point to make it. Okay, let's rewind back and restate. So when my brain's caught up on my thought process. Joy of pneumonia. So, with two of the Congos, they have enough subdivision work that they, I believe, feel crossed line into fast battleships. But there are two which stay as battle cruisers, because they don't have the same level of subdivision added inside, and so they got they got a little bit of increased armor, not much, but a little bit. But they haven't got the subdivision increase, so they're still battle cruisers. One word. Like HMS Tiger, and like the German ships. But two of them, I feel, with the subdivision, especially as worked on around the engine rooms, makes them cross that line to being fast battleships. Because the difference between a fast battleship and a battle cruiser is as much about subdivision as it is armor coverage. Because that's the whole spectrum that you're talking about on cavalry spectrum. When you start off with a battle cruiser, two words, battle cruiser, one word, fast battleship, battleship. Greatest level subdivision is going to be this end. Most cruiser-like subdivision is going to be at this end. And you're also going to get armor coverage increase. Now, the thing is, please don't, I'm saying armor coverage, not necessarily. The people often go on, yes, but this has got 9-inch armor versus this one's got 6-inch armor. No, it doesn't matter. That's the thickness of armor they're building at the time. That's the level of thickness they're building at the time. That's what's built across that generation. It don't matter. Thickness of armor is thickness of armor is thickness of armor. Doesn't matter a jot. It can matter if you're arguing between battle cruiser and battle cruiser. Battle cruiser, two words, and battle cruiser, one word. You can go thickness of armor, that matters. That's why I would say Renown, Repulse, and Hood, they all start out definitely as battle cruiser designs. There is a reason why HMS Tiger displaces more than Renown and Repulse. Because Tiger is built not by Fisher, and so she is a battle cruiser, one word, and she's 28,500 tons, or she's roughly 2,000 tons in standard, more heavier than Renown and Repulse. And that's mostly to do with subdivision and armor coverage. So that's the fun thing. Okay, let's see what the last questions. So we have a fair number of questions to get through before I'm supposed to end in 18 minutes. Well, let's see if I can do that. But yeah, if the 14-inch cats are around the mid-30s, Hood gets modernized, yes. Does she come as fast battleship? No. Question 225. Why was there shortage for them both as AA guns to begin with? Tooling up the factory and also supplying the necessary numbers versus the supply. The supply originally ordered based on peacetime requirements, and then there's wartime requirements, and it's scaling up. It's tooling up and scaling up something you're already working. Question 97. If multi-class are being built, when about would they be replaced, and how would they affect the British aviation industry with their larger carriers? They probably would have been able to take larger aircraft, and you'd probably be talking about 1980s for replacement, roughly 40 years service. 80s, 90s. 9681. Would it be accurate to say that the British had the right to idea of saying stuff sometimes doesn't go for a mixed approach to the default? No. logistics. Standardization helps. Logistics is always king. What are proposed names for the multiclass? If I remember correctly, let me just check. I've got two of them in my head. I'm just trying to remember the fourth. I think it was going to be Africa, Gibraltar, Malta, and New Zealand. And they're built by Fairfield, Vickers, John Brown, and Camel Lairds. Then Harlan Wolff. Question, is there a tax advantage of being leader of the cult of the Black Man UK? No. And I'm not leader of the cult. Question 28. What if the Americans had paid the British to help them with night training techniques after Taranto? How would this affect the Pacific campaign? Well, honestly, the Americans have the ideas. They just don't have it widely implemented as a training scenario because it's one of those things where they prefer to spend the money on other things. That's their thing. It's not that the Americans can't do it; it's that they prefer to spend the money on other things. And so basically you're saying is if what happens if the Americans spend the money. It's not going to have any impact for 6 months, but it could well have impact in time for Midway and Coral Sea. And by the time it has an impact on those, it's going to potentially have a massive impact. If the Americans manage to attack the Japanese at night, rather than waiting for daylight, and manage to find the enemy and fix the enemy and then attack them at night, especially if they get some air service radar working and off the British, etc., because it's having the pods that you can easily attach to aircraft that's the problem. Then they could inflict a lot of damage without receiving a lot more damage themselves. And that's the whole reason for the British night policy. The British night policy is based on this very real understanding the British have of we might be one of the largest navies in the world, or actually the largest navy in the world from the 1920s and 30s, because the Congress are never going to... Whilst on paper the US are allowed to be the same size as the British, the US Congress is never going to fund it to be the same size as the Royal Navy. So basically that's the British ace in the hole when it comes to treaties. They always know whatever they agree with the Americans, the Congress will never fund it enough. But the big advantage in terms of having British night strike is that the British have it developed is because the British believe they are going to be despite being the largest navy in the world, they're going to be fighting outnumbered at some point, because they're going to could be fighting so many places at once, and so night fighting and night strike ability is the offset advantage. It's the ability to hit the enemy when they can't hit back or can't hit you as well, when you can use your smaller size to inflict outsized damage. And so the Americans, with their larger strike capability, especially in their carriers focused on strike, which they could be because of the Pacific, and I've discussed this before in the Naval Aviation Doctrine Scenario videos, they probably pick it up. They can probably deliver a devastating night strike if they've got that level of training included as their possibilities. And yeah, that could wipe out the Japanese fleet in a night, or at least their carrier arm. Question, is it accurate to think the Fairey Spearfish for an aircraft was intended with post-war in mind? Yep. Would the Clemenceau class aircraft carrier SAM battery of 28 cell SAM launchers 36 Cocktail this and similar launchers be in line with French carrier doctrine that we see today? It's certainly a starting point towards it, and it's certainly a basis of what a lot of they're thinking of. And question 221, what were the Americans thinking when the whole Curtiss SB-2C held over float plane? They were thinking they could use them as float planes. And they were good scout aircraft. Remember, that's the overall is scout aircraft. Remember that scout dive bombers. And question: were the IJ pilot training requirements as stringent than the IJNs? Not far off. Nice from people take the record Libyan Air Force MiG-23 MS Flogger, which crashed in the Mount Sila,
because the pilot was saying Kosovo would have oxygen due to the pilot's failure to activate his oxygen system. A brand new but too big oxygen masks as evidence of the conflict between NATO and Libya. How silly is this? There are so many issues going on there. There really are so many issues. I'm not getting into that one. That one's a whole deep dive and people died. Alex, if the ideas of small unmanned surface drones does become a thing, will it be a thing to see LHD-type vessels capable of launching communities? Oh yes. We've already discussed this on Build Trumps, and Build Trumps will be coming back soon. Build Trumps will be coming back soon because I can record that and edit out the coughing. So, yeah. It'll be probably released on my YouTube channel because I think that's where we're going to move everything because it's just cheaper than hosting it on Simplecast. New IKB 472, the new IKB. I was adding in 4472 because that's what you always were. Would the outermost bowl of an LROD be a good place for a missile farm? Yeah. Let's take it over. And if there was conflict between NATO and Libya, wouldn't we know about it? If there's conflict between NATO and Libya, oh, good lord. Alexis, wait. There are people looking for conflict at the moment in the world. There's a lot of enough conflict going around already for everyone, but the people are still looking for more. It's always fun to try and find it and spot more because then you can say you were right. At the moment, I don't think Libya is high on the priority list of anyone to have conflict with because I don't think even Libya is high on the priority to have conflict with itself with it at the moment. Right on. What happens if the DM Fiat and the FAA gets a sole source contract with Pratt & Whitney to produce the Wasp Major in 1935? They get very, very happy and probably purchase a lot of them. Honestly, question 2802189 everyone. That is for a transport historian. Go give that to Darius the Brit. That's is actually one of his things because he does study a lot about those sort of things. So yeah, 1980s crashes. Go to Darius the Brit. Actually, I'm going to tell you to go ask him that question. Yeah, go ask Darius the Brit. In 1940, the Commonwealth gets 200 CF-100 Mark IV each. How would this change the war? Okay. Let's see. They get CF-100s. Arvo Canada Canucks. 1946 sort of era, 1940s. Second World War, pretty interesting vessel aircraft type. Let's see, how does this change things? Photo reconnaissance, sorts of variants. Let me just try to remember specifications. Let me look at the declared certifications. Mark IVs. Well, it gives them jet fighters in 1940, and it gives them quite a lot of them. 200 each for each of the Commonwealth, each of the sort of the Commonwealth. I'm going to go Empire members. Let's say all the Dominions get them. So you got 200 for Australia, 200 for New Zealand, 200 for Britain, 200 for Canada, 200 for South Africa, 200 for India. You got roughly 1,200 jet fighters coming into service in 1940. That's going to cause issues. It's going to change the defense of Singapore dramatically. It's going to change the defense of a few things dramatically. And it's probably going to cause problems because whilst they don't want to get necessarily into dogfights with enemy piston prop fighters, they are going to be able to do fast attacks on enemy bomber formations at long range, and that's going to cause them real trouble, especially once you've got with decent radar control, which they can provide. Question 220 should be very simple. Probably. Let's see. Question 217. So, if World War II had been delayed, what aircraft might have taken up the order of the 550 ESB Vindicators? It's kind of depending what aircraft are ordered. Again, it depends how long the delay goes on. There's enough. There's been a fair good response on the discussion point. Most people go, war wouldn't have been delayed past 1942, and my main answer to people who go 1942 is, if I delay war to 1942, then I've given an unfair advantage to the Royal Navy, because the only one who's got any designs which are planned to be completed by 1942 is the Royal Navy. And yes, they won't have everything in service they want, but they will have a lot of it in service. And that's an unfair advantage. Definitely an unfair advantage. Question 216. Why was Indomitable only equipped with 32 quickfire and 2-pounder pom-pom until April 1942? Because she was mainly at that point, up to that point, doing Mediterranean duties and other duties like that, where the pom-pom was probably better. In Mediterranean, they wanted really mass volume of fire, and the Bofors makes more experience once you're doing slightly longer range fire, but when you're doing the Mediterranean, yeah, pom-pom is probably better. And 215. Why would a illustrious class only armed with 16 4.5-inch Gilboa's guns and 48 4mm pom-poms in the beginning? Well, top weight for why you're only carrying 16 4.5-inch guns, and well, the 48 2-pounders, again, it's the volume of look, when you're putting guns on a ship, you're also deciding how many crew you're going to carry for those guns, how much ammunition you're going to carry for those guns, where you're going to store it, how you're going to supply them. And all that goes into how many of the guns you put on that ship. So when they're designing these ships, which are, let's be honest, the Illustrious are designed other pre-war carriers, they're good for what they're designed for. How many acres is the new house on? I haven't worked out the acreage, but I do know that the garden and plot size is roughly twice the size of our old house. But this is also a bungalow, so it takes up a lot more space on land than our old house because it has more square footage. But it's nice. And I am roughly 10 o'clock. I've got 4 minutes to go, so I'm going to go say thank you to people. Thank you everyone for your support. Thank you everyone for everything you're doing. Thank you everyone for your donations. It's really weird being ill. It's really not nice, all the thing. I have my sympathy to everyone who has to deal with long-term illness. I always have had sympathy and wanted to support people, but it's a case of it's only when you're hit it, and this has taken me back to the time when I had whooping cough when I was a really young kid. That was the last time I've been dysfunctionally unwell. I've been lacking in fitness because I haven't done enough exercise, because I spent my time reading history books, writing history books rather than exercising. Yeah, I have had those issues, but that's not the same as this. That's so not the same as this. It's annoying. So thank you to everyone for your support. Thank you for your help, and thank you for being so kind. Life is interesting at the moment. I'm working my best to get back to full production. I will hopefully be back to full production full sport, because I know you've all said very kind words, but I do feel like I'm letting you down. And one of the things I always said, this channel is about engagement. This channel is about spreading love of naval history and talking to people about naval history, and yeah, the different points in naval history and different perspectives, and getting people engaged in the conversation. And it upsets me when I see the engagement rate going down on this channel, and I try my best. I will try my best to do more. And thank you again, as I said, for all your support. It's been a year. It has already been a year. In the nicest way, we have had knock after knock after knock, and it's not quite the same as being back in COVID. But I will say this, one of the things that keeps me going is talking with all you and reading your comments and reading the chats and having the chats with you on Discord and those things, because it's so nice to know that naval history is loved by other people other than me, and they love it and they're interested in it and they want to discuss it, because that's what I want to do, and that helps me keep going. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Don't let the books fall on me. Well, speaking of books falling on me, can I reach it? I can reach it just about. So, this stretches roughly across three of the boxes, and so I've been using these to reinforce the box towers. And I've done a fairly good job, I'd reckon. A fairly good job. It's fun. Thank you to Renon for all your work this evening. Thank you everyone for being here, and take care. Yeah, it's fun, but I'm trying my best to get back to you all, and as I said, thank you. Now I just need to work out how many calyxes I'm going to need for this place. No, literally, that's an honest discussion I had, and this is, as I said, Drac is very kindly giving me some calyxes, of his old calyxes. He's got a 5x5 and a couple of others he's going to give me. And I reckon I'm still going to need to buy another 6. Sheer quantity of books. I'm currently double stacking books, which is okay when I'm storing them. It's not okay when I'm trying to use them as reference, because it makes it more difficult to get them out. But I'm double stacking books, and I've only got one calyx here. I've only got one 4x2 calyx in this room, and that is in no way near enough. I think the plan is going to be probably 3 black calyxes in here, 4x2, 3 white 4x2s, a white 5x5, a white 4x2 up there, a black 4x2 up there. So I'm going to, and it's just going to be a lot of calyxes filled with books. I'm going to have books in every single room in this property, in my property. And still probably not a whole enough bookshelf space, but I'm going to try for it. Calyx. I think it's K-A-L-A-X, but it could be C-A-L-A-X. And they are very good. They're from IKEA. And I tend to go with the Calyx system because they deal with the heavyweight books quite well. Whereas the Billybacks, which I actually have an example of to my side. I have a Billyback. This is a Billyback which I've had for a while, and it's going out to the storehouse actually, because my books have literally ripped the shelves off it. Yeah, weight of books literally ripped shelves off it. The spring shelves. So this is why I go with the Calyx system, because the Calyx system is designed for heavyweight. And again, if I take this round, you can see a Calyx system in the corner. That's the Calyx system. As you can see, I'm bouncing the white light off the wall. That's the corner of the Calyx system. That's in there around. It's fun. It's fun. It'll work, but I need a lot of them. They are bookshelves, and basically the plan had been, as I was talking about earlier, was for me to build bookshelves. And actually, my plan was to build bookshelves in that corner, because I could build a supportive bookshelf. Okay, a bookshelf system coming up beneath the stairs and around the corner, and self-supporting, and I could build in really good bookshelves. And then once I got the books on there, I could have got them all out of boxes, or at least a large number of them out of boxes and all these things. But yeah, I don't have the stamina at the moment. It's really frustrating, and it's something I'm going to have to work on, pneumonia-wise. I'm going to have to work at getting back my stamina. I do realise I have to get back my stamina. I'm currently taking doggies for wonders as far as I can and those sort of things. But yeah, the stamina just goes. Pneumonia in both lungs was not fun. Anyway, take care everyone. I had better go get some rest because I can feel things coming on. So take care everyone. Thank you very much for your help. Thank you Seneca Nero, thank you Melanie640, thank you Black Maximus, thank you Andras, and thank you Anuk, thank you Rapid Razorback, thank you Steve, thank you Runon, thank you Knight, thank you Stafford, thank you Rick Vasava, thank you Paul Beswick, thank you everyone who's been on chatting away, Timmy Locker, thank you Dick Richards, thank you Calvin Gasberg, thank you Drakenred, thank you Blackburn Maximus, thank you. Thank you everyone who's been here chatting away. Danny Wright, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone, and thank you everyone for your support, and yeah, take care everyone. Toodles.